Conspiracy theories rarely appear out of nowhere. They usually emerge when people notice gaps in a story, conflicting information, unanswered questions, or details that don't seem to fit together. Some are built around real documents and real events. Others are built around missing information, rumors, or claims that were never fully verified. But they all have one thing in common. They attempt to explain something that people believe hasn't been fully explained. Whether those explanations are accurate is often where the debate begins. The theories discussed in this video are presented for informational purposes only. Discussing a theory does not mean believing it. If you'd like to vote on future topics or suggest ideas for future videos, you're always welcome in the Night Shift Telegram channel. The QR code is on screen, and the link is in the description. Dead Internet Theory. What if a large part of the internet isn't made up of real people anymore? At first, the idea sounds ridiculous. After all, every day millions of people post videos, leave comments, share opinions, and argue with strangers online. But supporters of the dead internet theory believe something changed. According to the theory, a growing portion of online activity is no longer created by humans, but by bots, automated systems, and artificial intelligence. They point to strange comment sections filled with generic responses, accounts that post hundreds of times a day, entire discussions that feel real on the surface, but somehow seem empty when you look closer. The theory began gaining attention in the early 2020s, when people started noticing just how much content online could be generated automatically. Then AI became more advanced. Bots became harder to recognize, and the line between human activity and artificial activity became increasingly blurred. Critics of the theory argue that there is no evidence suggesting that most of the internet is fake. They believe the theory exaggerates a real problem. Bots do exist, but they don't control the internet. Supporters disagree. They argue that the question is no longer whether bots are online. The question is how much of what we see every day is actually human. And that's exactly why the dead internet theory continues to divide people. Denver Airport. Most airports are known for long lines, delayed flights, and overpriced coffee. Denver International Airport is known for conspiracy theories. Since opening in 1995, the airport has become one of the most discussed locations in modern conspiracy culture. At first glance, that might seem strange, but the theories didn't appear without a reason. People began pointing to unusual artwork displayed throughout the airport. Murals that some interpreted as disturbing or symbolic, a massive blue horse statue with glowing red eyes, and rumors about a vast network of tunnels beneath the airport. According to one popular theory, those tunnels aren't simply part of the airport's infrastructure. They're believed to be connected to secret underground facilities built for powerful political and business figures. Some theories go even further, claiming the airport serves as a headquarters for a future global government. Supporters often point to the airport's size. Denver International Airport is one of the largest airports in the world. Its construction cost billions of dollars, and several parts of the project were redesigned or rebuilt during construction, leading to years of speculation about what was really being built beneath the surface. Critics argue that there is a much simpler explanation. Large airports require extensive underground systems for transportation, maintenance, utilities, and security. The artwork was created by artists, not secret organizations. And no evidence has ever been presented showing the existence of a hidden government complex beneath the airport. Yet decades later, the theories remain. Not because people have proof, but because every strange detail seems to create another question. And for many people, Denver International Airport still feels like more than just an airport. Project Blue Beam. Project Blue Beam is a conspiracy theory that first appeared in the 1990s, after Canadian journalist Serge Monast claimed that powerful organizations were preparing a plan to influence people on a global scale. According to the theory, modern technology could one day be used to stage a worldwide event convincing enough to be accepted as real by millions of people. The most well-known version of the theory involves massive projections appearing in the sky. Some supporters believe these projections could take the form of religious figures. Others suggest alien spacecraft, and some believe the exact event is less important than the reaction it would create. The theory argues that if enough people witness the same extraordinary event at the same time, public opinion could be influenced on a scale never seen before. Supporters often point to advances in technology as one reason they take the theory seriously. Artificial intelligence can generate realistic images and videos. Deepfakes can imitate voices and faces. Visual effects have become increasingly difficult to distinguish from reality. To supporters, these developments show that large-scale deception is becoming more technically possible than ever before. Critics argue that technological capability alone is not evidence. They point out that no documents, verified witnesses, or confirmed operations have ever been presented to prove that Project Blue Beam exists. Most versions of the theory trace back to the claims of Serge Monast, and no independent evidence has ever confirmed his allegations. Because of that, many researchers view Blue Beam as speculation rather than a real project. Supporters disagree. They argue that the theory is less about proving a specific operation exists today and more about highlighting what future technology could make possible. More than 30 years after it was first proposed, Project Blue Beam remains one of the most debated conspiracy theories involving technology, mass communication, and social influence. Supporters see a warning about the future. Critics see a theory built on possibilities rather than evidence. And like many conspiracy theories, the debate continues because neither side has been able to completely convince the other. Bohemian Grove. Deep in the forests of Northern California, there is a private campground known as Bohemian Grove. Every year, some of the most powerful men in America have reportedly gathered there. Politicians, business leaders, bankers, media figures, even former presidents. And that alone is enough to make people ask questions. The location is owned by the Bohemian Club, a private organization founded in the 19th century. Officially, Bohemian Grove is described as a retreat, a place where wealthy and influential people can relax, socialize, and escape public life for a short time. But the secrecy around the gathering has made it one of the most discussed places in conspiracy culture. The most famous part of Bohemian Grove is a ritual known as the cremation of care. During the ceremony, members gather in front of a massive owl statue while a symbolic figure is burned. To the club, it is described as a theatrical tradition, a way of leaving behind stress and worries. But to conspiracy theorists, the imagery looks far more suspicious. They see powerful people meeting in private. They see strange rituals. They see a place where cameras are not welcome and the public is kept outside. And they ask one simple question. If nothing important happens there, why is it so secret? Supporters of the theory believe Bohemian Grove is more than just a retreat. They claim it is a place where elites form connections, discuss influence, and make decisions away from public attention. Critics argue that there is no solid evidence that major world events are planned inside Bohemian Grove. They point out that private clubs, strange traditions, and wealthy guests do not automatically prove a hidden government or secret agenda. Roswell Incident. In July 1947, a newspaper headline appeared that would help create one of the most famous conspiracy theories in history. The headline claimed that the U.S. military had recovered a flying disc near Roswell, New Mexico. For a brief moment, it seemed like the government had confirmed the existence of something extraordinary. Then the story changed. Shortly after the announcement, military officials stated that the object was not a flying saucer at all. According to the new explanation, it was simply a weather balloon. For many people, that should have been the end of the story. Instead, it was only the beginning. Supporters of the Roswell conspiracy theory believe something crashed in the desert that day, but it wasn't a weather balloon. Some claim it was an extraterrestrial spacecraft. Others believe the government recovered technology that was never shown to the public. Over the decades, witnesses came forward with new stories, new claims, and new theories. Books were written, documentaries were produced, and Roswell became one of the most famous UFO cases ever discussed. Critics argue that there is a much simpler explanation. Years later, the US government stated that the debris was connected to Project Mogul, a classified Cold War surveillance program designed to detect Soviet nuclear tests. According to that explanation, the secrecy surrounding the project helped create confusion and fueled decades of speculation. Supporters believe the changing explanations prove that important information was hidden from the public. Critics argue that classified military projects often create misunderstandings, especially when the details remain secret for years. More than 75 years later, people are still divided over what actually happened near Roswell. Some believe it was humanity's first encounter with something not from this world. Others believe it was simply a secret military project that became one of the biggest conspiracy theories ever created. MKUltra. Most conspiracy theories begin with a question. MKUltra began as a real government program. In the early 1950s, the CIA launched a secret project known as MKUltra. Its goal was to study methods of mind control, behavior modification, and psychological manipulation. For years, the project remained hidden from the public. According to declassified documents, researchers conducted experiments involving drugs, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and other techniques designed to influence human behavior. Many of the people involved had no idea they were participating in the experiments. As information about the project slowly became public, it shocked people around the world. What had once sounded like a conspiracy theory turned out to be a documented government program. But that wasn't the end of the story. Supporters of modern MKUltra theories believe the public still doesn't know everything that happened. They point to missing records, destroyed documents, and unanswered questions surrounding the project. Some believe certain experiments went much further than official investigations revealed. Critics argue that while MKUltra was real, many of the claims made today go far beyond the available evidence. They point out that decades of rumors, speculation, and misinformation have become mixed with the facts. What makes MKUltra different from most conspiracy theories is that its existence is no longer debated. The real debate is about how much remains unknown. Supporters believe important parts of the story were never revealed. Critics argue that the available documents already explain most of what happened. More than 70 years after the project began, MKUltra remains one of the most unsettling examples of a conspiracy theory that turned out to have a very real foundation. CERN alternate reality theory. Few scientific facilities have generated as many conspiracy theories as CERN. Located near Geneva, Switzerland, CERN is home to the Large Hadron Collider, the world's most powerful particle accelerator. Its purpose is simple in theory but incredibly complex in practice: to help scientists better understand how the universe works. By accelerating particles to extremely high speeds and colliding them together, researchers can study some of the fundamental building blocks of reality itself. For most people, that's where the story ends. For others, it's where the questions begin. Over the years, CERN has become the center of countless conspiracy theories. Some claim its experiments could open portals to other dimensions. Others believe the facility may have altered reality itself. One of the most popular theories links CERN to the Mandela effect, the phenomenon where large groups of people remember certain events, names, or details differently from how they officially exist today. Supporters of the theory argue that if experiments at CERN were powerful enough to affect space, time, or dimensions, they could potentially explain why some people believe reality has changed. The theory gained even more attention after videos of unusual ceremonies, strange internet rumors, and misunderstandings surrounding scientific research began spreading online. For many people unfamiliar with particle physics, the facility seemed mysterious, and mystery often creates speculation. Scientists strongly reject these claims. According to physicists, there is no evidence that CERN has opened portals, altered timelines, or changed reality. They argue that the Large Hadron Collider operates according to well-understood scientific principles and that its experiments are nowhere near powerful enough to create the effects described by conspiracy theories. They also point out that the Mandela effect can often be explained by memory errors, false recollections, and the way human brains process information. Supporters remain unconvinced. They argue that many of CERN's experiments involve concepts most people barely understand, making it difficult to know what is truly possible and what is not. Critics respond that complexity should not be confused with secrecy. Just because something is difficult to understand does not mean it is hiding something extraordinary. Supporters believe CERN may be connected to changes in reality that science cannot yet explain. Critics argue that the theory is built largely on misunderstandings of advanced physics. And years after the theory first appeared, people are still debating whether CERN is simply a scientific research facility, or something much more mysterious. Phantom time hypothesis. What if nearly 300 years of human history never happened? That is the idea behind the phantom time hypothesis, one of the most unusual and controversial theories ever proposed. According to the theory, the years between 614 AD and 911 AD were either exaggerated, misrecorded, or entirely fabricated. If true, it would mean that we are not living in the year we think we are today. The theory was proposed by German historian Heribert Illig in the 1990s. He argued that certain rulers and religious authorities may have altered historical records in order to place themselves at a more significant point in history. According to the hypothesis, hundreds of years were effectively added to the calendar. Supporters of the theory point to what they believe are inconsistencies in historical records. They argue that some events from the early Middle Ages appear poorly documented compared to other periods. They also question the speed at which certain architectural and cultural developments supposedly occurred. To supporters, these gaps raise an uncomfortable possibility. What if parts of history were reconstructed long after the events supposedly took place? Critics strongly reject the theory. Historians point to thousands of documents, archaeological discoveries, astronomical records, and independent historical sources from different civilizations that align with one another. They argue that removing nearly 300 years from history would create far more contradictions than it would solve. One of the strongest arguments against the theory comes from astronomy. Historical observations of eclipses and other celestial events can be compared with modern calculations, and those calculations closely match the accepted timeline. For most historians, that alone is enough to dismiss the hypothesis. Supporters disagree. They argue that unanswered questions still exist and that historical records are not as complete as many people assume. Critics respond that incomplete records do not automatically prove missing centuries. Supporters believe history may contain a gap far larger than most people can imagine. Critics argue that the evidence overwhelmingly supports the traditional timeline. And decades after it was first proposed, the phantom time hypothesis continues to divide those who see it as a fascinating possibility and those who see it as one of history's most ambitious misconceptions. The Montauk Project. What if secret experiments went far beyond anything officially admitted to the public? The Montauk Project is one of the strangest conspiracy theories ever connected to the United States government. According to the theory, a series of secret experiments took place at Camp Hero, a former military installation in Montauk, New York. Supporters claim the project explored topics that sound more like science fiction than science: mind control, psychological manipulation, time travel, teleportation, and even experiments involving human consciousness. The theory first gained widespread attention in the 1980s through a series of books written by Preston Nichols and others who claimed to have knowledge of the project. According to those accounts, researchers were attempting to push the limits of the human mind and explore technologies far beyond anything publicly known at the time. One of the reasons the theory became so popular is that it appears to connect several different conspiracy theories together. Some versions link the Montauk Project to MKUltra. Others connect it to the famous Philadelphia experiment, a story claiming that a U.S. Navy ship was subjected to secret tests involving advanced technology and allegedly disappeared from sight. Over time, these stories became intertwined, creating a much larger conspiracy narrative. The theory gained even more attention years later when many viewers noticed similarities between Montauk's stories and the television series Stranger Things. While the show's creators have never claimed it was based entirely on the Montauk Project, the comparison introduced the theory to a new generation. Supporters believe these connections are evidence that pieces of a larger story have survived through books, witness accounts, and popular culture. Critics disagree. They point out that no verified evidence has ever been produced showing that the experiments described by the theory actually took place. Many of the claims rely on personal testimony rather than documents, physical evidence, or independent verification. They also argue that as the story spread over the years, different theories became mixed together, making it difficult to separate original claims from later additions. Supporters believe the lack of evidence is exactly what would be expected from a successful secret project. Critics argue that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And despite decades of debate, that evidence has never appeared. To supporters, the Montauk Project may be one of the most ambitious secret programs ever hidden from the public. To critics, it remains a fascinating story built from rumors, speculation, and imagination. And even today, people still can't agree on where the legend ends and reality begins. Simulation theory. What if everything around you is real, but not in the way you think? Simulation theory is the idea that our entire reality could be an artificial simulation created by a civilization far more advanced than our own. Not a simulation of a single person, not a simulation of a city, but a simulation of an entire universe. At first, the concept sounds like science fiction, something you would expect to see in a movie rather than a serious discussion. Yet over the years, the theory has attracted attention from philosophers, scientists, programmers, and technology leaders. One of the most influential arguments was proposed by philosopher Nick Bostrom in 2003. His argument suggested that if advanced civilizations eventually gain the ability to create highly realistic simulations of conscious beings, the number of simulated realities could vastly outnumber real ones. And if that is true, statistically speaking, it may be more likely that we are living inside a simulation than in the original reality. Supporters point to the rapid growth of technology. Video games become more realistic every year. Artificial intelligence becomes more sophisticated. Computers become more powerful. They argue that if technology continues advancing for thousands or even millions of years, creating an entire simulated universe may eventually become possible. Some supporters even search for clues within reality itself. They point to mathematical patterns found throughout nature, the apparent limits of physical laws, and the strange fact that the universe often appears to operate according to precise rules, almost like a program following code. Critics argue that none of this proves anything. They point out that there is currently no evidence showing that our reality is artificial. Many scientists view the theory as an interesting philosophical idea rather than a scientific hypothesis because it cannot currently be tested or verified. Others argue that complexity alone does not imply design. Just because reality follows rules does not mean someone created those rules. Supporters believe simulation theory may be one of the most important questions humanity could ever ask. Critics argue that without evidence, it remains an unproven thought experiment. But what makes simulation theory different from almost every other conspiracy theory is that it doesn't question a government. It doesn't question a secret organization. It questions reality itself. And if the theory were ever proven true, every conspiracy theory, every historical event, and every human achievement would suddenly become part of a much larger mystery. Supporters believe we may one day discover that reality is not what it appears to be. Critics argue that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. For now, nobody knows the answer. But few theories force people to rethink their place in the universe quite like simulation theory. Whether any of these theories are true is up to you to decide. Thank you for watching until the end. If you'd like to vote on future topics, suggest ideas, or join the discussion, you're always welcome in the Night Shift Telegram channel. The link is in the description. Your idea might become the next Night Shift video. Until next time.